Good evening. Our hand today is Ace King. So you got a preview of the board. Full ring game. We have a tight early position player. Open raises the 3 big blind. He's playing 16-10. Looking at his pre-flop stats, he's played 8%, raised first in 9%. So he's raised first in basically all of them. I believe he has a range something like this. Strong, tight. And I think you could typically play. These guys tend to be a bit straightforward. So his cbet stats 67% when he's in position, 75 when he's out. He's going to be c-betting because he's going to have a lot of good hands here. So I'll call him straightforward. So it gets to me. This is in my 3 betting range. So versus the button, or I'm the button versus an early position player. I tend to raise with these hands. I do include the ace 4, ace 5, and I would include it versus this player. He folds to a 3-bet 57% of the time. I do think, based on his range, that if I raise here, then I do think he's going to be folding quite a few hands. So I kind of think nines is going to fold. Nines and tens. He's probably, he's either keeping both or maybe just keeping tens. I think he dumps these hands, maybe queen jacks. I think kings and aces is going to 4-bet. So let's see what happens. I raised to nine big blinds. I don't think I need to go much higher than this. I think he plays straightforward. I'm going to get the fold with 9 big blinds. Or with 12 big blinds, doesn't really matter. And if he calls, he's going to have a pretty solid hand. And with my ace king, yeah, I block his ace king, ace queen. I could be behind 2 queens, jacks, tens, that sort of thing. So he calls. So is he calling with this range? No, I don't think he calls with king queen off. I don't really think he calls with ace jack off. I do think he calls ace queen plus. Ace king on a tight player like this probably just calls because he's out of position and it's unpaired. And I don't have any mention of him. I don't think I have him 4-betting at all. So 4-bet after raising, it's 0. So I think I include ace jack. Queen jack, probably not. We can kind of go back and open up his range a little. But I think he folds about half of his hands. So I'm going to go with this pretty tight range, and we see a board of 10-10-5. Not the greatest. I think jacks are going to call. I think queens are going to call. I think if I bet, I think he could call with ace queen, ace king. Definitely diamonds are out there because I don't block them. So I think if I'm ahead, I'm probably still ahead. If I'm behind, I'm likely to stay behind on the turn card. So villain checks. I check behind. I think this is the right play, but I could be mistaken. It is a 3-bet pot, so I might need to be aggressive here and continue with that c-bet. Because again, 2 tens are out there, so it makes it less likely that he has pocket tens himself. Yeah, jacks are going to call, queens are going to call. And really, if they call, then I could slow down and reassess on the turn. So I checked behind. Queen of diamonds fell, probably one of the worst cards around. If he had ace queen, he's now caught a queen. If he has diamonds, he caught the flush. If he has, let's say, ace king offsuit with an ace or a king of diamonds, he's not going to fold here. So I checked behind, and then the king came out and he bets half pot here. And I think this is just kind of sick. I called, even though I kind of felt like, it was, yeah, I hit top pair with the king, but just awful. I just think this was awful. I mean, there's so many ways. Really, I'm gonna beat ace queen. King queen beats me. So it's just I called. So what does GTO say? So I've got it in. Let's check it out. So I did program that villain was going to check to me. I was the three better. I think most players are going to check 100% to us. So I put that in, and then just kind of what I was suspecting. GTO was saying, "Hey, we need a bet. This is a three bet pot. I have, out of aces, kings, and queens. That's 18 combinations just of over pairs. Um, you have 16 combinations of ace kings, and then four more of this, so 24. So 24 unpaired cards. Oh, actually, ace five connects with the bottom pair, so cross that off. I have 22 hands with the five. That's one less, so if I have the five, there's three out there. 19 hands with a pair versus 16, 20. So almost 50% of my hands have a pair. The other 50%, a little more than 50%, do not. So I think I should have been betting 100% here. And then if I bet here, then villain's going to be calling, or should be calling, tens, jacks, queens, and then kind of mix it up. Ace queen should fold. So let's continue. Let's say I did bet and he calls, and the board was the queen of diamonds. Now villain's supposed to lead out, and would he lead out? Maybe. I don't know what his donk stats are on the turn. So 0 out of 10. I'm going to say probably not. Note his probe. So if I check behind, he should be betting here on the turn, or he normally does bet on the turn. So we can go investigate that based on my hands, my ranges. So he should be betting. He checks to me. So if I bet and he calls and then he checks now what do I do? Now it looks like I'm checking a little bit more, and especially with some of my ace kings, I'm betting with the diamonds. I'm checking with if I don't have it. I think ace kings. That's right. Ace of spades, king of diamonds. You check it mostly. That must be a hand that's kind of mixing it in, so that way, if we check it down and a diamond comes, it's possible that I could get paid by maybe some other diamond that's in his hand. Maybe jack of diamonds would pay me off. So he checks. Had I bet, I probably would have checked this, because I do think it's just a bad card. I do think I would have checked it then. So then the king of clubs comes out, and now he probes about 50% of the time on the turn, and he's done it 2 out of 3. So now let's say he bets, and he's going to be a mix of betting here. He could have full house, queens full. He could have flush. It looks like he's supposed to be. He could bet with some of those queens, probably as a bluff, and you could see it. Sometimes bet, but I think he's probably betting with a solid hand, and then at that point, we're mixing it up. Sometimes we're gonna call, sometimes we're gonna fold. Kings are definitely raising. Kings full, you're looking for some value, but like aces, just gonna call here. Ace king, probably do more folding than calling. The diamonds is a blocker, so if we have the ace of diamonds or the king of diamonds, it makes it less likely the villain's going to have the diamond in his hand. So I think we call that just to, we do have some value with top pair, and we're protecting against him, making the play because he doesn't have the diamond. So let's go back and change this, because GTO says I should have been betting, and I agreed. I think I said Here, it was a 3-bet pot. I had the initiative. I probably should have just gone ahead and bet. Yeah, he's probably going to call with some hands, but he could have also folded them. He could also, give me credit for having aces or kings or something like that, and made a bad fold. Um, we assume that they're playing GTO, and of course they might not be. So let's go ahead and say um, we're checking ace king. And let's say we're checking aces as well. We would bet kings and queens. And I think I would have bet ace 5. I don't know if I would have bet with ace 4. Let's do this. We're going to bet. So I'm pretty certain I would have bet with the flush draws. So that would have been ace king and ace 4 diamonds. And I kind of think some of these ace king hands I could have bet. I didn't bet because I didn't have the diamond. We're going to select those. So I would have bet definitely the ace of diamond and probably the king of diamonds. And the reason being that if I get called and a diamond comes out, that improves me. And I know that villain isn't going to have, let's say, the nut flush diamond. The nut flush. If I have the ace of diamonds, I have to be worried about the king of diamonds. So let's check that out. Ace of diamonds, I definitely bet. King of diamonds, I don't. Leave that out. Middle pair bets. Ace 5 bets. Ace 4 is going to bet with a diamond, but not with those. Because, again, I think villain's playing a tight range. And I'm going to bet queens of kings to try to get a little bit of value for aces. I'm going to try to slow it. Hopefully he bets on the turn, on a low turn card. He bets, I could race, and we could get it all in right then. Now, we might get it all in if he has queens and kings, but with a tight player, he might be a little bit more hesitant to get it on the flop. Or I bet he raises, I re-raise over top, and he can find a fold with queens or kings. So kind of slow it down a little bit with aces. Whereas with kings and queens, if I have queens and I bet and he raises, I bet he raises, and I 4-bet. If he comes over the top, man, it's tough to fold queens. But what else does he have? Maybe jacks, but more than likely he would have kings or aces if I include them in the range. I'd really would then start to consider, did he have aces or kings? And he didn't 4-bet pre-flop. All right, so let's rerun this. So I check here. So back to our hands, I check. And now once I check, villain should be betting 70% of the hands. I am going to be much heavier in ace kings. Yeah, I have some aces, and I think that's probably the problem, is that when we count up the combinations of these checks, I'm going to be much heavier on the checks. So when I do check, I'm going to be heavier on unpaired hands than actual pairs. So once I do check, I think then his exploit is to bet most of his range. He doesn't, and then it's back onto me, and now I should be betting aces, and I would have. If he checked again, I'm going to be betting aces just to try to get a little bit of value from a hand like king queen or ace queen. At this point, what are some of the? I'd sometimes be betting ace 4. I don't think so. I think on this board, I'm still probably just going to check because I would have expected him to bet. He does pro, but let's say I am playing GTO. GTO says I'm mostly betting aces, then I'm going to have some checks here with the ace four. King of clubs comes out. Now, once he checks, now he should always be checking, but he didn't. He bet. So what is his bets? King queen, possibly ace king. And then I'm forced to call. So what all did he have? Because we did get the showdown. I called. He had ace nine of diamonds. Was that in his range? No, it wasn't. I had this in. I had him folding those hands. So if he calls with ace nine, he probably also calls with nines. And if he maybe has eights in there, I don't think he kind of has all of those. So let's rebuild this tree and run our solver and see when we add in some of these some more hands, how should we play again? Continue the aggression. So we have him checking 100%. Yep, 100%. I should be betting. I should not be checking. So big mistake here on my part. Would I have picked up the pot on the flop? Nope. I bet. He calls with his nut flush. He probably raises it. He could have raised, and I just fold. And then I kind of review the hand anyways and say, man, I made the mistake by c-betting. But I think it was a correct play. If this wasn't a 3-bet pot, then could be a little bit different. So he limps, I raise, he calls. Now it's more likely that the tens could have hit. He could have had a jack 10 hand, 10-9 hand. I think it might make a little bit more sense now to check a little bit more. So let's kind of try that out. So he checks. So I'm going to take out some of these big hands that I would have expected him to raise pre-flop. Let's say he would have limped. If he's limping, he's going to be a weaker player. Let's give him all the suited aces. Let's give him these small pocket pairs. Some of these suited connectors and suited one gappers. He's playing. He's got suited hands. He's looking for something like this. Now we're playing. We're going to be playing a little bit wider versus isolation as well. We're on the button. Probably something like this. On the button, probably all suited aces, maybe suited broadways as well. Let's do that. All right, so he limps. Build tree. He limps. We raise. He calls. Let's see what our. All right. So we said he was going to call, so he limped and then he called with this range. And again, if I raise and he calls, he might have tightened up a little bit. But now we're betting 63%. We're checking 37%. It's because we have a lot more weaker hands. Now you can see ace king's probably not going to be betting a whole lot. Definitely favor betting if we had the ace of diamonds. So I kind of, based on how I played it, I'm thinking I was probably playing it with a wider range in my mind, and so my own range was wider than it really actually is, which is causing me to overthink my bet versus check frequencies. I should have been betting everything because I'm just basically super tight. Does this change if I raise and villain calls with a tighter range? So let's say he calls with only something like this. I don't think so. I think we're probably at the same situation. So let's run the solver and just double check. All right. So now we're checking little less frequency. frequently. We're going to be betting a little bit more. But again, our bets are going to favor those, draws, having those diamonds. So if we do get called and a diamond comes, we've picked up equity, and that's a good thing for us. So, yep, screwed up this. I should have considered my hand is super tight. My range is super tight. We get to the board to flop. I should have been c betting, and then go from there. He calls. I slow down. All right. Hopefully you enjoy this. If you did, look tomorrow for another.